Hello, everyone. My name is Yukabeth, and this is God is Everything podcast. On today's episode, the title is called Unconditional Love for Yourself. Unconditional Love for Yourself. And this is actually based on Lamentations chapter 3, verse 22 to 23. And I was just scrolling on TikTok and the verse came up. Somebody shared it, and I was just like, it was just perfect timing. It's like a verse I needed at that moment. And it basically says, because of the Lord's great love, we are not consumed. For his compassions never fail. They are new every morning. Great is your faithfulness. Now, the reason why this was perfect timing was because I kind of slipped up. Like I kind of messed up. Like I kind of not even kind of. I did mess up. I really did. I messed up. It's like when you know better and you like disregard what you disregard the warning signs, you disregard God's voice, and you still do it, and then you find yourself in a compromising situation that you could have definitely avoided, but because you were being rebellious. And I talked to God about it, and I was like, hey, like, I'm sorry. And the thing about God, he forgives. God is full of compassion. He's going to forgive you. That's not the problem though. I realized I was having a hard time forgiving myself. Like for some reason, like I just couldn't get over it. Like I kept bringing it up. I was like, why would I put myself in that situation? Like I just kept beating myself up for it. And when I read this verse, when it just popped up, I was like, wow, it was mind blowing to me. Even though I've heard it, this verse is pretty common in church, but it's different when you are actually going through a situation where you don't feel worthy of his love. You don't feel worthy of forgiveness, even from yourself, right? And so if the verse is saying that God's love is so great, his mercies are so great, his grace is sufficient, even more than sufficient for us, to the point that every morning he has enough mercy for each one of us every single day. Why can't I forgive myself? If every single day I have a clean slate with God, why can I have a clean slate with myself? Why can I not love myself to that degree? And I realized, when you are seeking to please God, we rely on our actions to make us feel worthy, right? And so when we mess up, when we fall short of his glory, it's like our whole identity in God, our whole relationship, we throw it out the window, but we forget that even when we couldn't do these things, even when you couldn't, even when you weren't a Christian, even when you did not know who God was, or even when you knew who he was and you did not acknowledge him, he still loved you. He still kept you afloat. His love kept you afloat. And you look at the story of, not the story of David, but there's a psalm in David. Psalm in David. There's a psalm from David. And he basically says, I forgot the verse, but he basically says, matters are too great for me. I rather quiet my soul like a baby that's being weaned. That's what King David says. And I thought it was so interesting that he uses that illustration of a baby being weaned, and he compares himself to that. But when you actually look at a baby, when you were a baby, you couldn't do anything for yourself. You couldn't even talk. You could not advocate. You had no opinion. You were just a baby. You were just there to be taken care of. And somehow God provided for you. Somehow people took care of you. Somehow you got the food. You got what you needed to get to this point that now you're grown. You have ability to think, ability to reason, ability to just do much more. But if God didn't need you then to get you here, what makes you think he needs you now to get you further? Like he didn't need you. He didn't need your capability. He didn't need your skills. And sometimes we forget that God's love has always been around. God's love for us has never changed, even when we weren't doing what we're supposed to be doing. God had to remind me that, hey, like, I already knew you were going to sin on this day. I already knew you were going to fall. That's why I sent my son to die for you. So now there's enough grace. There's enough grace to cover you today. There's enough grace to cover you tomorrow. So you're good. So it's okay. You can forgive yourself. You don't have to beat yourself. It's okay. Like, I already knew, even God talks about how he knows that we come from dust. God knows that we are fragile. God knows our tendencies. He knows us. That's why he did what he did. That's why he went to the extent he did, because he knew we will need it. He knew we'll need the insurance money. There's a video, and this guy said something like, he said, sometimes it's hard for us to accept people's love when we have given them no reason to love us. Because we live in a world, right, where it's basically, we're used to transactional love. If I give you this, you do this. If I do this, you do this. But when somebody loves you and you haven't done anything for them to love you, you haven't done anything for them to be kind to you. Like when somebody's just kind to you and they bless you for no reason, like it throws some of us off because you didn't control the narrative. You didn't control the reason they should love you. And so for a lot of times we don't accept that love. We're suspicious of that love. And so when God loves us unconditionally, it's like, why do you love us unconditionally? What have we done to deserve this love? God, what have and you look through everything you've done and there's nothing worthy that you've done, but somehow this God loves us. And one thing I'm learning in this season, and that's why I wanted to share with you guys, is loving myself unconditionally. If God can forgive you and you can forgive yourself, then you can forgive other people. You have to renew your mercies towards yourself every single day. Letting go of this transactional love you have for yourself and allowing yourself to be loved, to feel love, even when you feel unworthy, even when you feel like nothing. Because at the end of the day, it's you. At the end of the day, it's you and you. It's not you versus you, right? You're on your side. Be on your side. Be your biggest advocate. Be your biggest friend. Be your sweetest friend. God will forgive you. God can forgive you. You can forgive yourself. And this concludes this episode of God is Everything podcast.